Alright, you read the title. We're talking teenagers this week. Why there's so many shows about teenagers with a surprisingly small amount of actual teenagers present, what we can learn from them, and how and why the CW network's been around for so long. Now, if you've been here before, you know I already talked about this briefly on my Why We Write About Children, and teenagers are children. That should never be misunderstood. But they're a select kind of child. They're not quite the standard 12-year-old protagonists of stories people like to use. They're normally 16 or 18, or basically they're just about to become adults. So why are there so many of them? Why do we have so many stories about these teenagers floating around? Well, my base thought is just the usage of teenagers, for better and definitely for worse sometimes, easily lends itself to a more dramatic form of storytelling, but without losing a sense of authenticity or realism. Because when we watch soap operas where the husband is having an affair with the maid who's really the sister of his wife and she's already plotting to poison him or whatever, we know that's just soap opera nonsense. People don't actually act that dramatic all the time. So it begins to exclude people who think, well, this isn't real, that's not how people actually act. But with teenagers, you're allowed some leeway. Because as we've covered before, when you're a child, your body is not done developing physically and mentally. You're not the same place you'll be when you're 30. But with teenagers, you become just old enough to act with some real agency, yet not without a heavy handful of drama. It's a weird dichotomy that exists, but nonetheless, it's there. And for a great example, we're gonna look at the oh-so-infamous I'm a Weirdo scene from CW's Riverdale. For all those that need some context, Jughead, played by Cole Sprouse, is arguing with his girlfriend Betty, played by Lily Reinhart. They're arguing because Betty threw him a birthday party while knowing that Jughead wouldn't want her to because he hates his birthday, and his response is this long monologue about being weird.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
And people have ripped into this scene. People have made fun of this scene to no end because it's ridiculous and overdramatic.
I don't fit in, and I don't want to fit in.
However, let's look at what's being communicated here. That Jughead is upset with his two friends for doing the very thing he didn't want. And more importantly, nothing he says here is inaccurate. The show does do active work to make Jughead standoffish. The show makes it a point to correlate Jughead hating his birthday to his mom and sister leaving him, and that his evaluation of Betty's actions is pretty accurate. She had the best of intentions and meant well, but threw a party more for herself than him. These things are accurate, and the show confirms this. All that being said, he communicates all of these points in the most insufferable and annoying way possible.
Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat on? That's weird.
Why are you getting so upset?
Even though he's right, he sounds like such a dramatic jerk that it almost doesn't matter. But the weird thing is, that makes sense. I know he's Cole Sprouse, but he's playing a 16-year-old. Have you ever hung out with a teenager? They say stupid stuff all the time. Which is why I think this scene is actually pretty good. Of course, we're grading on the CW curve, but look, Betty, an earnest and caring girlfriend, wanted to do something nice, but blindsided herself in trying to make herself feel better. Jughead, the intelligent and insufferable boyfriend, sees right through this and gets mad accordingly. You see, there's actual drama here, and their characters are actually butting up against one another. I mean, think about it. How many teen romances or rom-coms or whatever could be fixed by an honest conversation? We all know the trope, a misunderstanding nearly causes a breakup, and it's not till the end of the movie or episode that they just sit down and talk and realize they were both wrong and should just be together. But here, everything's out in the open. Betty and Jughead are actually arguing because the basis of their argument actually stems from their characters' flaws. And it's presented in this dramatic and emotional way because they're children who've never been in this position before. And look, you could say that's not your cup of tea, but if the goal was to show teenagers arguing with one another, then I'd say it hit the mark. See, teenage characters have access to what I like to call emotional authenticity. Teenagers are allowed to be a hot mess because ultimately they're still children who need help. But they're mature enough to explain why they're feeling a certain way. It's not unlike baby children who are still discovering their emotions. They're allowed to be filled with drama yet maintain an air of realism because that's just the nature of that point in life. But of course, not all the scenes have to be so explosive. I think there can be also some good drama between two good-natured characters trying to help each other despite how they feel. And this is where I inevitably have to bring up Smallville, the early 2000s show about a young Clark Kent learning to be a Superman and an all-around good person. Contrary to the explosive hot messes we see on Riverdale, Smallville's teenagers are an authentic but different style of teenage characters. Smallville depicts nearly all their teenagers as sincere sweethearts who just want the other characters to reciprocate their long invested feelings of love. I mean, really, with the exception of the villains, all the characters on Smallville are trying their best to be good people, which in a story about superheroes, especially Superman, that's a good premise. Nonetheless, things don't always go according to plan and feelings get hurt, and this is another type of storyline that lends itself to that dichotomy of teenagers. Okay, you see in this scene, Clark just discovered his best friend Chloe has feelings for him, and his crush Lana comes over to talk to him about it. However, unknown to Clark, Lana is beginning to develop feelings for him. As a result, Lana unintentionally ends up pushing Clark and Chloe together despite how she feels.
Sometimes the right person can be right in front of your eyes and you never even know it.
Now, all that sounds like some melodramatic gobbledygook, but I'll be damned if I don't feel bad when the camera pans out to Lana looking at Clark and Chloe together. The whole scene is meant to elicit a feeling of aww or sadness rather than the anger we saw from Riverdale, because they're all so young and sweet.
Everything okay?
Never better.
Of course, as adults, we can recognize the problem as trivial and even very silly, but as we've been going over, they're not adults. Their immaturity and lack of experience only informs their characters' actions and motivations in these scenes. The reason this scene is so dramatic is because we don't want to see anyone's feelings hurt, but the characters themselves don't want to hurt each other. That type of synergy between an audience and character is something every show is looking for, so no matter how silly you might think the problem is, these children are behaving and acting within the realms of reality. Because this limited world they exist in is their reality. And just like Riverdale and basics in drama, the conflict could not just be fixed by the characters talking to each other. If anything, that would probably escalate the problem. I hope this is all getting through because in so many ways, teenagers are the perfect age for characters. They can act mature and earnest in a way that feels great. It makes us cheer for their growth, but they can also be rude and cruel without us condemning them because of their inexperience. As just characters, they can encompass a multitude of emotions without breaking what people perceive as reality, which is why we have so many shows about them. Whether it be the hot garbage nonsense on Riverdale or the laughable yet heart-wrenching motion on Smallville, these shows allow adults to be reminded of being a kid and teenagers a chance to be seen. All that being said, none of that excuses CW or any show for hiring adults to play these teenagers. Look, I get it. The reality is they need these shows to go on for more than a few seasons and actors will get older and cease to be teens. But the other reality is portraying negative views on what teenagers actually look like. You seen a teenager? They're still a baby. They're not Cole Sprouse, Lily Reinhart, or Tom Welling. When you're a teen, your body is fluctuating and morphing in weird ways that are scary, and seeing these picture-perfect actors portraying what is allegedly you is only damaging to their sense of self. I can speak from personal experience to other people I know to just research that's already been done. Especially when the show decides to sexualize characters that are supposed to be teenagers, no show about teenagers should also have a scene when they perform a striptease to Mad World. I get it, no one wanted Betty to do it, but the scene is still very indulgent. Trust me, I think Lily Reinhart is cute too. But this scene should not have happened because Betty is supposed to be 16, and the only reason it could be argued as okay is because the actress is 22. Or in other words, don't sexualize teenagers or children even if they're fictional. No good can come from it. And cast teenagers to play your characters, because these shows are for them. They should be the ones that see themselves on screen, from the plot to the characters to the actors. Because it is an interesting stage in your life and it should be treated with care. But that's all I got. Thank you for watching and sharing, and I'll see you all next time. P.S. My brother Kyle and his friend Hannah are just starting a podcast all about teenage trash. So if that's what you're into, CW or whatever, you should go check them out. They're starting with Titans on the new DC streaming service. So if you're into that, go check it out. Alright, later.